My software bugged though, and my view of myself blacked out. And so it was a little harder to keep myself in frame when I was like focusing, trying to read a question. But I didn't realize you could press Control Plus to like make the text in the window bigger.
Oh, dude, I didn't know that.
Because
Okay.
it has to be full screen, I think. So if you have a big monitor and like you don't want the text to be like super spread out or like make it easier to read, you can zoom it in using Control Plus. Yeah.
You take breaks?
Yeah, every 60 questions, you get an option to do a 10-minute break. You're allowed to move off screen during the break. So I just used the restroom or something, came back, and you're allowed to end the break early. And it just, without any like preamble, it goes straight into the next set of questions.
So before Elliot leaves, which he doesn't have to, I mean, you can say if you want to, dude. Does anybody have any questions for him? My only question is, when are you guys booking your exams? Let's do it. Let's get it over with. Don't let him be the only dude smiling. Raina, what's up?
Yeah. So what's the complexity level compared to, let's say, the quizzes that we do? Is it a ballpark or?
I feel like it's on par. I feel like there were a lot of freebies. They were mostly just multiple choice. There was a couple like pick twos. I think I could remember like maybe 4 or 5 pick 2 questions. And then I had 2 match. There's like 4 or 5 options you need to match each other 4 or 5 options that align. But in terms of complexity, I think it's pretty much follows what we've been doing. There's going to be a lot of ones that are easy. I actually didn't get a lot of change requests or questions or change control.
Okay.
I think there were a good number of questions where like the answer choices were kind of like, it's like, oh, what should you do next? And then like 2 of the answers are both very good. And then you have to kind of like consider like, what would be the thing you should do first? I ran into a couple of those where I flagged and returned to just to read it again when I knew I had a lot of time. It aligns pretty closely with what we've been doing. Nothing was unexpected.
Just to follow up, when you were doing these quizzes, where were you landing typically? Was it like 60% or were you like all right or all correct? So where were you landing with those?
Oh, okay. So like the 60 question quizzes we took on the PM Master Prep website, I was getting about 78 or 80%,
Okay.
which was pretty cool. I think like when I started at the beginning of the course, I had like a pretty bad grade. I think like, yeah, like Scott was saying, like understanding like why the tools we use can help us or how the tools we use help us made it a lot easier to answer a lot of the questions that they offered. I feel like there were a lot of agile questions. Like very agile heavy, but a lot of the agile questions luckily weren't as like specific as like the specific ones. I feel like we struggled with more, but it was like, oh, as a servant leader, how should you resolve this conflict? You know, as a like, you know, if this arises, like how can you smooth this out? Stuff like that. Like I got a lot of those.
That's cool.
And it was often like, oh, like who should you go? Where should you go next first? You know, and it's like, how can you do your best to resolve it without escalating to the sponsor? I feel like a lot of the was how you like get to think about it a lot. But yeah, I'm sure like the questions rotate and stuff, so like, the balances might be different. But,
yeah. Melissa, that's good. Good, David. Elliot.
How did you feel about like time management, Elliot? Like, did you finish early? Did you have time for review? How'd you feel about our pacing that we've been working on?
I think I don't recall how much it was at the start. Like it's at least it's like 4 hours.
Yeah, a little bit less, but yeah, right around that. Just call it 4 hours. Yep.
I think I was initially like watching the clock pretty carefully just to see how I was pacing. I think like the questions that are very hard, I think it was good that I skipped or I flagged and came back to, just to have a better idea of how your time breaks down at the end of that section of 60 questions. Pacing, I think it was pretty similar to how we're doing. Like I ended with 55 minutes at the end when I submitted, but I think there were a lot of questions where I went pretty quickly. And then when I came back at the end, I was like, you know what? I'm pretty sure I did well on this. I don't have to worry too much about these 50-50s that I plan to spend much more time on. And then I submitted. But I think like if I really wanted to, I could have sat back and like spent more time thinking about them. But I felt like I would have gone from like a 50-50 to like a 55-45. And so in the end, I was like, I think I felt good about the stuff I'm confident about. So I didn't go back, spend too much more time. But I would say like, yeah, the pacing we've been doing on the quizzes kind of aligns with like, you know, obviously we're not going to have time to like go over together and review, but like, if, you know, I would say the hard questions I felt okay spending 3 minutes on. I think a lot of there's a lot of questions where if you read them and look at the answers, like you can solve it in like 15 seconds. And those kind of give you more time for the hard ones. Yeah, it wasn't like an excessive amount of time by any means, but I think it was pretty doable with all the practice we've been doing.